Click for Biology, addressing syllabus statement 218, and here we're looking at the process of differentiation in which cells specialize their function, and this occurs because some genes are expressed, switched on, and others are not. So after fertilization of an egg cell, we have the fertilized egg cell, the single cell known as the zygote. This zygote cell will then undergo mitosis, where one cell will divide to form two. And the interesting thing about this type of cell division is that if we take each of these cells, they are identical. And when we say identical, what we mean is that each cell carries the same complete set of genetic information. When the cell division called mitosis occurs again, two cells will form four, and of course this process carries on until we end up with a ball of cells. Just put the nucleus in, suggest that. So here we've got a ball of cells, and this ball of cells is called an embryo. At this point in the embryo, each of these cells contains the same genetic information as any other cell. If this were human, this would mean that any one cell contains the complete set of genetic information to make a human. This is true of each of the cells, and yet we know that these cells will specialize to become, for instance, nerve cells, muscle cells, long and thin, with the ability to contract. They may form blood cells. So these cells here will go through a process called differentiation, in which a cell will specialize to carry out a particular function. So here we have the specialized functions, and notice that the specialized function requires a change in shape of the cell. So we recognize function from the shape. How does this happen? Each cell, let's take this cell as an example. So if we focus in on this cell, we know that the nucleus contains the information to become a nerve cell. It contains the genetic information to become a muscle cell, and it contains the genetic information to become a blood cell. And yet the cell has become a nerve cell, or of course the cell has become a muscle cell. The reason for this is that in this pathway, genes which are required to become nerve cell are switched on. In biology we use the phrase expressed. So nerve cell genes are expressed switched on, and the nerve cell, the embryonic cell, becomes a nerve cell. In the muscle cell genes are expressed, and the cell specializes and changes its shape to become a muscle, but the nerve cell genes were not switched on. In the case of the blood cell genes are switched on and expressed, and the cell changes its shape to become a blood cell, but it did not switch on the muscle cell genes, and it did not switch on the nerve cell genes. This process is called differentiation. Cells divide, differentiate by expressing some genes and not others, and develop specialized functions. This is typical of multicellular organisms.